You know what they say, in order to be able to go fast, you gotta be able to stop fast. This little turd right here, it can't stop at all. So I'm giving it the whole shebang. Pads, rotors, caliper rebuild, and the fluid flush. Flush, it ain't got no fluid in it. Maybe master cylinder rebuilds, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I bought all the parts off of Rocky Mountain ATV. It's all Tusk gear. I've never done this before, so we're gonna learn together. Let's do it. Today we've got this crusty old caliper. Definitely seen better days. So, we've also got caliper rebuild kit, brake pads, new piston, just in case, rotor, and master cylinder rebuild, just in case. I don't know, we might have to return some of this stuff. So here we've got the caliper on the table, and I'm just gonna keep disassembling it a little bit more. It's already mostly taken apart, but there's like one last bracket on here that's got to be disassembled. There was a cap on here where I've got that inserted. There was a cap covering it, so I couldn't see that it was a bolt that loosened it. And that cap is a rubber cap that's gonna get replaced. It's in the top right of the towel right now. So take that cap off, you'll have access to the second bolt that takes off that bracket. And now at this point, it's pretty much completely disassembled. So I'm opening the contents of our first package here. All balls racing. And this looks like it's the new piston. I wasn't sure if I was going to need to replace the piston, so I bought one anyway and figured I could return it if I didn't need it. But I did go ahead and replace it. And that's because I had no idea how to take the old one out. So buying the new one was my insurance. So what I'm doing here, don't do. I tried to put electrical tape over some pliers. That way it'll be kind of just be a softer grip around the piston. And I mean, first of all, I couldn't even get a grip on it. There was no way I was going to be able to get it out with these pliers specifically. And even if I could, it would have taken so much force that it would have damaged the piston through the electrical tape. So this is how not to do it. And here's how I actually did it. I used my air compressor, hooked up an air gun, and was able to build up enough pressure to shoot the piston out. Here's the old piston coming out. I had just done it, and then I noticed I wasn't recording, so sorry for not catching that on camera, but you take the air hose and put it into the hole where the banjo bolt goes, like where the brake fluid gets fed in there, and then you give it a couple pumps, and you have to hold that rubber tip in there to build enough pressure, but maybe like 50 psi, and that piston's going to come flying out of there. Make sure you don't have it pointed at your face. I put my hand over there and it just kind of shot it into my hand. So, yeah, sorry for not catching that one on camera. Here's the old piston with some sort of a cap on it. I think it's the OEM one. The new one looked a lot better quality. Just overall, not because the old one was corroded, just the new one looked like a better piece of equipment. So here I am unboxing the the caliper rebuild kit. Just taking everything out and holding it up and trying to see where it goes before I disassemble too much. You know, taking it out of the bag, comparing it to what I see on the caliper. And so rebuild kind of starts now. I went to go pick out the two seals that sit behind the piston, and I noticed it was just gross back there. So I took a paper towel and cleaned it up. I cut a bunch of this out, but I mean, I really got in there. I used almost the entire paper towel just because brake fluid is gross, and any old stuff you can get out, you want to get out. It'll pay dividends later. So now that it's all clean, I use my pick tool. You can see there's two black seals back there that lock the brake fluid in place so it doesn't come spilling out every time you compress your piston. And be careful not to mar the surface. I'm using a pick tool, but it's got a round edge, and I'm being super careful. So get in there, pull those out. These were actually in surprisingly good shape, but the kit came with them, so I replaced them for peace of mind. A little bit more cleaning, a little bit more wipey. And then here you can see the grooves where you need to put the new seals back in. So to do that, take a little brake fluid, give it a little shake. I like to poke just a tiny hole with my pick tool. That way it doesn't come flooding out. Like I said earlier, this is nasty stuff. It's gross. It doesn't really come off your hands very well, so if I can prevent getting it all over myself, I will. Take the new seals, which are dry, out of the package and give them a soak in that brake fluid. And then pop them into place. It's definitely a two-handed operation. You want to get it started and then hold it in with one hand and then use the fingers on the other hand to seal it. And the seals are two different sizes, so you will not put the wrong one in the wrong place. It will not fit. Same thing for the second one. This process was pretty easy. Get it in there, click it into place, and then that is 2 seals down. Off to a good start. And then just one last final wipe before moving on to the next piece, which is the piston itself. This is probably the most daunting task for me. I was really worried that if I got it out, I wasn't going to be able to put it back in. But honestly, it went in pretty well. I think I got it on my first try. So same as the seals, go ahead and get brake fluid all over it. And then you want to place it into the cylinder nice and straight. And people overcomplicate this, I think. Everyone says you really, really want to make sure or use like a level to make sure it's going in straight. I mean, I think you can just feel it. I got it on my first try. Make sure it's not obviously going in crooked and just apply nice even pressure and you'll get it. And then, so now it's barely sitting in maybe a millimeter. So to get it fully seated and fully compressed down in there, I put a little wad of paper towel that you saw, and then I got a socket that fit into the divot of the piston and an extension. You can see it right here. And I just pushed straight down and it popped into place. I wasn't doing any twisting. I just had the ratchet on there so that I could get a good grip on it. So push that down into place. Everything's nice and flush now. Take that paper towel out. And that wasn't that bad. 2 thumbs up. The piston's in. So I'm feeling good now. We're on a roll. And honestly, those 2 were really delicate because that's kind of where the magic happens. Everything else that comes in the kit is just a rubber seal or bushing or protector that's not too critical. So I kind of skipped over. I didn't show exactly what to do for all of these, but it's just a lot of picking up a piece, finding out where it goes, taking the old one off and putting the new one on exactly how you took the old one off. Emphasis on exactly how. When you're taking the old one off, make sure you pay attention to the orientation, because there's 1 or 2 of these that when I took it off, I was like, uh-oh, I didn't notice that it had a collar only on one side or it had a rivet on the left side. So really hold a old piece or hold a new piece up to the old piece before you take the old one off. Make sure you know how it goes in there and you'll be good to go. And once you're done, you'll have a box full of old crusty rubber parts, and you'll have essentially at this point a rebuilt caliper. That's really all that goes into it. This caliper, I mean, the metal body of it is cast metal. There's no need to go out and buy a whole nother one if your caliper's leaking. Just replace the rubber parts, save yourself a couple $100 because you know those things are expensive. And this is an example of a job where a little bit of elbow grease goes a long way. So you've got this new fresh rubber on an old caliper, but that doesn't matter. The rubber bits and the piston are what's doing all the work. Everything else is basically just a mounting bracket. So what you're seeing in front of you is basically a fully rebuilt caliper. It should function like a brand new one at this point. So that's pretty much all there is for the rebuild. I'll kind of start flying through the rest of this because it's not that hard, and there's a million videos about it. I put my new pads in there. I did want to show this because there's a clip that I took off the old brake pad. I guess it's important to move it over to the new one. I don't really know why. I've never done dirt bike brakes before, but I made sure to save that clip off of the old pads, slide those in there, tighten everything up. This part definitely isn't rocket science. And there you go. Now you've got a rotor coming in. And yeah, we're flying through things. I'm getting the bike set up on the stand so that I can take the rear wheel off. It's hot in the garage. It's July in North Carolina. It's about 90 degrees outside, so take a sip of water. You deserve it, man. In order for the rotor to go on, the back wheel needs to come off. So there you have it rolling away. And the rotor's really not that hard, but I did want to show this. I wasn't really sure which way it went on. It fit both ways. But the side that I have facing up right now that I'm bringing to the camera, it's got these black washer-looking things in the mounting holes. And then when I flip it over, you'll notice that it doesn't have those. So it fit both ways. The side with the black washer holes had the Tusk brand imprinted on it. And so I figured for marketing reasons, that is probably the one that's facing outside. So I went with that way. And I went to go mount it, and at this point I just have a bunch of loose bolts. So my tip here is if you ever don't know what bolt to grab, just go to wherever you buy your parts. For me, it's Rocky Mountain ATV. Look at a parts diagram, and you can see here I found the bolt, and now I've just got a better idea of what it looks like from that diagram. You can see it's got a little collar on there, so I went to my thing, and bang! Found me some bolts with collars, and there was 4 of them, so I figured those, probably the rotor bolts. Throw them in there, hand tight at first, and then tighten everything in a cross pattern and torque it down. And that's really all there is to go to putting a new rotor on a bike. And now all that's left to do is remount everything, put the wheel on, and you're rolling. So I recorded myself. I'm going to fast forward through this real quick because you just put everything on in the reverse order of how you took it off. But I do want to talk about the bleeding process real quick. I didn't record myself bleeding the brakes. There's a bunch of videos on how to bleed brakes. But there's a little bit of dispute on which way is best. You can do a normal bleed. You can do a reverse bleed. From what I've noticed, you really only need to reverse bleed on KTMs. For whatever reason, if you try to bleed it regularly, it takes forever. Something to do with how they've got their system set up. So on this one, I just did a standard bleed where I filled the reservoir up, pumped the brake a couple times, then cracked open the bleeder, closed it, rinse and repeat until you've got fresh fluid coming out of the bleeder all the way in the back. So I went ahead and did that, and that's an entirely new braking system. I did not end up needing to do the master cylinder, actually. That's the only thing that didn't get changed. But, I mean, in this video, you saw me replace the pads, the rotor, which are pretty straightforward, and then rebuild the caliper, which is kind of the star of the show. So, putting everything back now. It was a little wobbly when I put it back on first. And then I thought I might have had the rotor on there wrong, but it ended up being a bolt on the other side. You'll notice I don't have the sprocket on. So the nut that holds the sprocket on was all the way at the top, and it was actually rubbing on the swing arm. So all of this to just say, double check everything when you're putting it back on. But yeah, now we've got some nice shiny new brake parts. And there you have it. Everything's put back together, torqued, flushed, tightened, the whole 9. Brand new stuff, got the nice shiny rotor. I almost wish I would have painted the caliper because it looks a little junky, but luckily it's got this guard in front of it, so you can't even really see it. And that's all there is to it. Whole job from start to end probably took about 3 hours. I've never done it before, and I was filming the whole time, and I am not good at filming. So if I can do it, you can do it too. All Balls Racing makes really good rebuild kits. Rocky Mountain ATV and Tusk's got everything else you need parts-wise. I know it wasn't the most detailed how-to video, so if you got any questions, just let me know. I'll respond back in the comments. I was figuring it out as I went, so it was kind of hard to touch on everything you need to know. A little sneak peek on the build now that I've got the brakes going. I've got a motor coming in that I'm gonna put in there. And a little spoiler alert, it don't run on gasoline. So if you wanna know what I end up doing with this build, subscribe, like, comment, hit the bell, I don't know, whatever you gotta do. I'm not even 100% sure what direction I'm going in with it, but it will be electric and it will be fast, I can promise that. So yeah, hit that subscribe, I got more videos coming. Appreciate you for watching.